Seriously. Okay. Guys, in an effort to continue to highlight the important stories and not spew some random shit that no one cares about in these times, we have another relevant conversation I'm really excited for you guys to hear.
Yeah, and I've been... we've been trying to figure out when to have him on, and I just feel like with his expertise and experience, this is like a great time, and he's one of the most dear people in my life. His name is Alex Taylor Williams, and he's right now he's a creative production manager, coordinator. I can't remember for a major fashion line in the country. We don't want to name brands. You know, it's not what we're trying to do is call out specific brands right now. And, you know, he's in the industry. We don't, you know, we want him to have a long career in the fashion world.
Right.
But he is a super talented stylist and person. And he knows the industry really well. And he knows racism in the industry really well. And we wanted to pick his brain and find out what it really is like. We mentioned this in the interview. Like, we know Devil Wears Prada and like that sort of aspect and whatever the Kardashians post and like, you know, like the fashion world. And we see the Met Gala, but like we don't really know the intricacies of racism and like he puts it well, like the microaggressions that exist.
Yes.
So
such an important conversation. And one of the things that I was saying to him before we got on the air is that when things like big political conversations happen in the country, people tend to assume certain industries are highlighted, right? Like, and people tend to assume that like, oh, we can't talk about fashion right now. That's so trivial. We're talking about bigger issues like race and people don't realize that it's ingrained in everything. And fashion is something that I don't care if you don't care about fashion, you're still wearing clothes every day. You still are consumer in this industry and you still have buying power, and regardless of if you claim to care about it or enjoy fashion or not. And it's an industry that we are all participants in because no one walks around the street naked. And it's also an industry where this is like just as ingrained as it is in every other industry.
Yeah.
And he, like, speaking to somebody who was in like a major luxury brand, like we said, we're not naming names, but you all know this brand, like this company. And he has a lot of perspective, insight.
Yeah, and like fashion is something that, I mean, with a lot of other industries that is consistently stolen from the Black community, like ideas, trends, so many things are stolen and then put on a white body to market. And
literally everything.
Or even,
everything.
You know, even if they do feature Black models, they don't have Black leadership. And it's something that we talk about and something that needs to change. So enjoy. Al, I'm so happy you're here.
I'm so happy to be here.
It's so weird because like Al is like family and like I have, you know, it's like crazy and we've been trying to like get him on and like have the right topic and make it perfect and everything. And I mean, it's impossible, but I mean,
but here it is. Actually, it's not impossible.
Yeah, but I'm so happy because he's literally one of the best people ever, and I love you and thank you for being here.
Of course, and I am such a fan. Like, I've been listening to every episode, watching on YouTube, and I just love y'all so much, and I'm so proud of y'all for doing this podcast and just being two opinionated women out here, you know, stating facts. Because it's important. It's important right now.
Thank you so much.
We try. I mean, you know.
We're
really just silly.
You do it well.
If you want to hear some real facts, check out our conspiracy theory episode.
I know, I was going to say, that's the first thing I was like, well, we do talk about Nazi airports and...
Listen, I think it's real, okay? I'm just saying. Anyway. Oh
my gosh.
Anyway.
Yeah, anyway.
But I think I kind of know, but audience definitely doesn't know. How long have you guys known each other, though? Like 10 years or so?
Wow.
What year is it? 2020? 11 years? 2009. 11 years.
Wow.
11-year friendship going strong.
And it was like
awesome.
love at first sight, like right away. We were like, you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was love at first sight. I actually knew about Alyssa because I had a friend that went to the same school, high school as me, and then went to Montclair State where we met each other and went to college.
Okay.
So I was actually kind of like, who's this girl? Like stalking her, like Facebook, like in high school, and then actually going there and getting to know her. It's like, oh my God. I just always knew that we were going to be friends. So
just always laughing and always getting into some shit together.
Yeah, it was a time. And, to this day, like, still, Alyssa's, like, my best friend. We talk all the time, so.
Yeah.
I love that.
But Al is, like, also just someone to always, you want him to be in your corner. Like, he's just, like, such an amazing support system and, like, so reliable. But, like, I mean, also, and why we have him on today, he's extremely talented and has been a guy. If you ever have a fashion question, you go to Al. Like, it's your passion. So, like, I want to know where this came from, really. And I feel like maybe I've asked you before, but I really do want to know the story of, like, how this became your passion.
Yeah, well, I was raised around a lot of women. And I grew up with, I have one blood sister who's 5 years older, and I have a couple step sisters as well that were older. And when I was growing up, I would just, I would watch them get ready for the day, and I just thought it was the coolest thing, watching them do their makeup and their hair and the clothes. And this was like back in the 90s when like Aaliyah was like super popular, and like the fashion of like the whole
funny.
like yeah, oh my God, this shirt.
I have an Aaliyah t-shirt on for those of you not watching.
That's so funny.
Oh my God, yes. But like that whole like 90s hip hop thing was really like obviously a big part of music history, but also a big part of fashion history too. So like growing up around, those girls, and even my mom was super into fashion. I think like Givenchy was one of the first words that she like taught me how to say, like when I was a baby.
Oh my God, I love it.
Like,
so bougie.
I just always grew up loving it. And my older
Where did
sister,
you grow up?
she would even she would hang pictures in our like bathroom that we shared from like Galliano, like Dior, like with Alec Weck. Like he did this great editorial where they were like painted blue, and like that was the first time that I really saw like high fashion and really like thought about fashion as an industry. And I just always was very curious about it, but I never really knew how to get into the industry or even if there, was an industry, like, being from South Jersey, Philly area, it's kind of detached. It is close to New York, so I knew that there was more to the story up north. But, in high school, I'm from, like, a pretty suburban town, so that wasn't what a lot of people aspired to. Yeah. So it really wasn't until college where, I kind of was going back and forth about what I wanted to do, and I was just randomly got an email from like a college internship person, and they were like, hey, Condé Nast is looking for interns for Details magazine, which was a men's quarterly publication, kind of like GQ. But I guess it was more for like that kind of downtown, more fashion forward guy on their marketing side. And I thought, I love the magazine. I really love fashion, and this could be a great opportunity for me. Yeah. So sophomore year, I interviewed and I got the internship, and I had, interned at Condé Nast all throughout college up until senior year.
Wow.
So,
and then you went to London.
Yes, I did. I studied abroad towards the end. Yeah, because, that was in 2012, 2013. Yeah. So a lot was changing at Condé Nast. Just magazines in general were
Yeah.
kind of becoming non-existent. So details actually, after I left, kind of went under, which kind of put me in a very compromising place. You know, I was just graduating, but I had dedicated, 3 years of my life to, an industry and a company that, just was kind of going through a lot of changes.
Yeah.
So it was interesting, but it was a really great experience to see what it was like to just work at a magazine. Like, I got to experience not only, with the fashion side of things, but also a lot of marketing experience, a lot of event planning experience, a lot of photo shoot production experience. It was really kind of like a all-encompassing internship. And I feel like I learned a lot more there than on campus.
Yeah. I was going to ask, what did you study? Marketing?
So I actually studied broadcasting.
Okay.
It was in the School of Communications and Media. So it was a lot of more like how to produce, digital shorts and how to produce covering news and journalism. So that was also very influential for me as well, having that kind of a background. Because, I went on to producing photo shoots and producing ad campaigns, kind of what I'm doing now. So everything kind of came full circle.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was like, you don't regret it. Like, I feel like that, lent itself to all that you do now. And there was a lot of skills that you learned. I mean, we can go all day about what we didn't learn
Same.
at school. But we, I think we both know, and a lot of our friends were all just like, you know what, we all met each other, and that's what's important.
Honestly, that's truly same for me. As far as what I was there to study, I really remember literally nothing.
It's a very millennial experience of just so much money, really just to socialize and meet beautiful people.
And that is the value you get from, where I'm met my best friends there. I fell in love for the first time. The life experiences that likely you would have if you weren't at college too. But it's I wanted, I don't know if with you guys, I wanted my degree. It wasn't I thought I needed it for music. I knew that I could jump into the industry without a degree, but it was just I want to go to school. But yeah, I know what you mean, Al. It's just what are you, for an internship where you're just thrown into the fire and you have to learn as you go and learn on the fly, that's how kids learn a language. That's how anybody learns anything fastest.
Yeah.
Instead of sitting in front of a book.
I remember the day I went for the first interview. You had to take a train because obviously we went to school in New Jersey, and then you had to take New Jersey Transit into the city. And I couldn't even know, back then the Condé Nast offices were in Times Square, which is only a few blocks from Penn Station where the train is. But I wasn't used to coming into Manhattan at all, that I got there an hour early, took a cab, took a yellow cab, which sounds crazy now, from Penn Station to Times Square, where you can literally just walk.
Yeah.
And, and I went and, it was this huge office building in Times Square. And I just remember feeling wow, I'm not in South Jersey anymore. This is gonna be, a life-changing experience. And it really was.
Did you have always, growing up or as your career developed, did you always have the support of your family?
Definitely now I feel very supported by my family. But growing up, being gay, being Black, it's tough, and it's not easy for anyone. So it took a lot of courage, though. I remember in middle school or high school or something, we had to do a personality board where you kind of cut pictures out of magazines and you kind of make a board about, pretty much who you are. And I just remember, not really seeing myself in a lot of magazines, not really seeing Black gay men depicted very often. So, I would, go cut out the pictures from the GQ or from the Vogue magazine that were just inspiring to me. And I remember showing it to my mom and her just being like completely like disgusted and just being
Really?
like, who do you think you are? Like, this is not you. Like, this is not ever going to be a lifestyle for you.
Wow.
And it was such a shock to me because were things that like I really loved and thought that, you know, were important to me at the time. It's really funny that one of the pictures I remember being on there was a certain designer that I ended up working for 3 years.
I have chills.
Funny.
So it's funny
that.
how that happens.
See, but it's not. Like we always say, like, oh, random, how weird. It's funny, but like, I don't think so. I'm like, that's you putting that into the universe, and like, even at the time, it's not like you were like, I want to work here one day. You're not thinking about it like that, but just like you're envisioning it, you're putting it out there. There's so much power in that. I love that.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. And I never would have thought, you know, growing up that I would be interning, you know, at this magazine and working for these different brands. Like, that was something that I had no idea how to even go about it.
Yeah.
So,
did you
shout
have
out
idols?
to everybody at Montclair.
Did you have like idols? Like I know one of them, like Andre Leon Talley.
Ooh.
Of
Like,
course,
did you like?
yes.
Were they pretty much kind of helped you realize like, oh, there's a place for me?
Oh, yes. I remember watching Fashion Police and Andre would be on back in the day. I think like when Joan Rivers like was still doing it, I would see him, and obviously on Top Model, like
Top
he had
Model.
some of the most like iconic episodes of that show. And, you know, his input is just so legendary. And I actually had the chance to meet him later in life during Fashion Week.
Oh my God, I can't believe I forgot this story.
Yes, so I was actually
Oh my God,
I was doing a fashion show for a very, you know, luxury brand that I worked for that would always show at the Park Avenue Armory every season. And I just remember my job was to seat people. So like I had a section of the people, and I was supposed to just help them find their seat and zip it and stand to the side. But also, you know, if they wanted water, like you can get them water or something. But for some reason after the show, like something just told me like, Andre Leon Talley's right there. He looks like a little parched. Maybe he want a glass of water. And something came over me, and I just like asked him. And he was like, no, I'm good, but actually come sit down next to me. I'd love to have a conversation with you. And I was just like...
What?
And then after that, I feel like everything just went like grayish kind of in my mind, because I'm like, oh my God, like this man is my idol, like so legendary, like everything that he's done for like just overall visibility of people of color in the industry. He's so important. He really is an architect. And I remember, you know, just thanking him, and it was such a great experience. We exchanged information and like sent me this beautiful email exchange, and it really, I don't think it's something I'll ever forget, being that close to someone that I've idolized for so long.
Well, and he just out of nowhere asked you to sit down and talk to you. Did he say like, why? Or like, did he have questions for you then? Because he asked you.
Well, you know, it's a fashion show, so people were trying to come up to him, and I just think but he was on his own. So I think that it helps, like, if you have someone sitting next to that you're talking to, you know, that way people will feel a little discouraged, like, to come and bother you.
Right,
so it was just such an honor that for those 5-10 minutes or whatever, I got to be that person.
That's amazing.
I think we talked about Trump, we talked about politics, like, for those
when
5
was
minutes,
this?
we had, like, a good conversation.
That was recently?
This was last year. This was around the time when he had a documentary that came out. I know now he has his memoir published as well. But this was around the time of the film. And, you know, we got to talk about that as well. And I actually escorted him backstage to go and congratulate the designer.
Oh
So
my
it was
gosh.
really cool.
Oh my
So
God.
because I remember I was obsessed with Top Model. Do you guys know, do you remember what year it came out?
When he was on Top Model, he was a
Yeah.
judge. So
Yeah.
I think he had a couple of those early seasons.
Do you know
I
what
think
year?
maybe, I don't know the exact year, but definitely after Janice Dickinson. I
Yeah.
think
What
had
year did it
left. I
start?
think
Maybe like 2005?
Before that, I feel like.
Before that?
the 2000 early 2000s, they all
Yeah, 'cause
blend together. It has to be around that.
If you
point.
like, I know, right? Wait, I wanted to ask you, like, in relation to him, because you obviously, I always love. I've been obsessed with fashion since like I came out the womb, and it makes me question whose womb I came out of because my mom does not care. But I've just loved it, and so, but I haven't been pursuing it as a career, and like the way that it struck you as your passion, I kind of want to. And being gay and being Black, the first person that I remember like coming into that, like repeatedly coming into the picture of the fashion world in terms of media and TV shows was him. And I don't know if that's because I wasn't as tapped in as the people who are really following it. Like I could be wrong, because I really, Top Model was like huge for me, and I watched a bunch of shows before and after that, but he was the first one. He wasn't just like a guest kid, like you said. He was a judge, and he was there all the time, and he was in a high position and respected. And is there somebody previous to him that made an impact on you, or was that, because we're similar age, like was that the first person that you really, in those aspects, being Black, like really saw yourself in the industry? Or were there, not that there weren't people before, but do you know what I'm saying? Like for you as a person like my age, did you see anybody else before that?
Yeah, I mean, growing up in Philly and South Jersey, me and my friends, we would go out to the gay neighborhoods. And I think that just seeing just everyday Black men of color, any kind of men of ethnicity, being themselves and expressing themselves through fashion or through their personal style it's always just been really, really important and amazing for me to see things like that growing up. And that's really what inspires me as well. And actually, after reading Andre's memoir, it's striking how similar, like, a lot of the things that he went through when he was coming up in the industry, not being paid, very well at all. Obviously I was at an internship, which was like a little bit different, but, struggling to really find, a financial backing for yourself, but at the same time, being the one that they want to go to for, to bounce ideas off of, and being the backbone of, those creative projects, but then not being, equally compensated for that. So
I feel like that
is really
a lot of you.
Yeah, and it's just it's sad, but a lot of people people of color in the industry that I've worked with, I do see a lot of wage disparity, and it's really something that I think needs to change. I don't understand, the hiring methods and those types of things, the decisions that are being made, but that's really what kind of struck me, is how similar his story was to me and to a lot of my friends.
What did it take? Like, what was it that kind of made your mom realize that, like, no, like, because your mom's accepting, and I know that, but what was the moment that she was just like, I got you, like, I get it?
I think one Christmas I got her some Giorgio Armani, like, presents. And, like, I think after that, she was like, okay, like, that he can work in fashion because it's going to benefit me in the end.
Oh, my God.
Because he's going to buy me all of the great gifts from the sample sales for Christmas and for my birthday.
I'm dead. That is the funniest.
No, like, you know what? It just takes time. Like, it just, you have to just really, as you're growing, you need to just always be willing to have conversations about where you are in life with people you love and have a feedback. It should be like an exchange of ideas. It shouldn't be like a one-sided conversation.
Right.
And I think that's really how me and, my mom is great, but a lot of other family members as well, like that's how we grow, is like just kind of learning from experience and kind of talking through our issues, and eventually things definitely work out.
And did you start noticing, like when you did your internship, like did you start noticing things that kind of were like red flags almost, and as a
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, like after I got out my little yellow cab to Times Square,
Yes.
I was just, it was striking how alienated I felt. Like, I'm from a suburban area. Like I grew up around white people. Like I went to Montclair, but being in a corporate setting and being the only person of color is a very interesting experience. And because, there's like a sense of camaraderie, I think, between a lot of, the people that are in those higher positions and even some of the other interns, because, some of the interns were people's nieces, cousins, family members. There was like that shared bond that, their families go yachting every summer together and do whatever in Cape Cod
They all get
or wherever they
sunburned
go.
together.
Right. And me not having those experiences, not having that same viewpoint, culturally on a lot of things, it is could be a very frustrating experience. So having that internship really taught me how to navigate, working in a white, saturated corporate environment, and learning how to, speak up for myself in certain times, and knowing when to ask questions, and, also, knowing when to educate and when to, really kind of tell them, right from wrong when it comes to certain things.
Do you have any memories of specific times where you felt like you had to hold back your opinion or anything because of solely because of your race at work?
Totally. I mean, working in the fashion industry, it can be very intense sometimes. Like, a lot of people think that it's just about, clothes and it's no big deal. But, we take our jobs very seriously. And there's a certain amount of stress and emotion that comes with that. And, people can get kind of snippy with each other. Obviously, we've all seen Devil Wears Prada. We've seen those types of, attitudes in those types of spaces. But what you don't see are people of color, and especially Black men, exerting that same kind of, arrogance and that same kind of, aggressiveness. Because a lot of times, in those white saturated fields, if I were to be that aggressive in the office or something like that, people would take it seriously. They'll take it a lot more seriously than, my white counterpart. So it's very frustrating, especially when something is unfair and there's something that you need to, speak out about, but also not having to, really kind of define and really prepare yourself for any kind of thing that you want to say, because you don't want it to be misconstrued, or you don't want to come across as like the angry Black man, or you don't want to be mislabeled as being aggressive when, your white counterpart could say the same comment about something and, it's taken as a joke or it's taken very lightly.
Yeah.
So,
and like you have the added weight of what you say doesn't just represent you to these people. You are like you have all the weight of like every person of color in fashion, every gay man that's Black in fashion, like all of these labels, the weight when you say something, if you're going to ruffle feathers, the weight of all those labels is like they're interpreting it. It's not just Al saying this. This is what gay Black men think, or you know what I mean? Like people make assumptions like that in the same way that like if there's a a female politician, if she wears a certain thing or if she cries, and it's like, oh, see, this is why women can't. It's like it's put on everybody.
Yeah.
What one
Right.
person does, and so I can only imagine when you're in a room.
Where there's
Yeah, because you're the
literal-
only
yeah.
one there. You
You're
know,
the
you're
only
the
one.
only one there. You're 18, 19 years old. You're
Yeah.
a young kid, you know, and you're far from home, and you're just trying to navigate this world that you admire at so much, and just try to find your way to be a part of it. And you definitely don't want, you don't want it for them to think, oh, well, that's the last time that I'm going to have somebody, here again from that school or from that neighborhood. So you carry that every single day you go to work. You can't, have a day where you're in sweatpants, and your hair's
Right.
a mess. No, every single day you go to work, you have to be on point, because you do set the example for those that come before you and that are going to come after you.
Yeah.
So there is that added pressure, and working in an industry like fashion where aesthetics is everything, and just looks are everything, and it's also a lot about these kind of personal relationships that you have with people. That's really how a lot of them succeed. So it can be very challenging at times.
Do you remember like how many actual like people of color you worked with, like Black people specifically? Like, can you even remember like how many were around you in any of these companies that you worked for? Like,
I would say, I've worked at it's hard because I've worked at a lot of different places in fashion.
Yeah.
So from Condé Nast, they kind of went under, and then I graduated and didn't really know what kind of career I wanted to do. I actually ended up working in retail for a little bit, and obviously,
okay.
like retail, that's where you see all the people of color. You don't really see them in corporate, behind the scenes making a lot of the decisions. But obviously, in the world of retail, that's where a lot of people of color are, and it's really sad because a corporation that, could be so giving to their corporate employees on the retail side, it's very challenging. Like, you're working for $12 an hour and having to deal with the public. And, it's just a lot of added stress in retail. But, it was very diverse, and I made a lot of friends that have gone on in the fashion industry through my time in retail. And also I, was able to do a lot of styling for editorials, like on the side when I was working retail. So I would work with a lot of different magazines, and, for even like smaller side projects for different artists as well. So, I do see a lot of diversity in the industry, but like I said earlier, I think the biggest issue right now is wage disparity. Because I don't see a lot of opportunity for growth at a lot of places, and a lot of reasons why a lot of my friends that are also people of color in the industry have left, are because of things like not ever given a raise after years and years of service.
See, and that's what, like, I know you know this and we know this because we talk about these things, but I really want to emphasize, because I don't know who's listening, like who at what age or what their background is, to people that like, just because you walk into a store and you see that there are like half Black, half white staff, that's not representative of the corporate structure of the brand. And I know that sounds obvious to us, but also I think so many people don't understand that. Like you're saying, if you're on the retail side, you're on the face of the brand. They want to show diversity because that's what they need to show today. You know what I mean? But when it comes down to it, who are the people up in the offices making the decision, getting the most money from it? What you probably know, I think is there one Black woman who's like the head of a magazine, one, and it's like basically the corporate structure of these
Oprah.
companies and these brands that are diverse enough on the face that we all see. And that's why people are like, what do you mean? Like, their ad campaigns are beautiful. It's important, yes, to have diversity in your ad campaigns. But just because, like you're highlighting, just because you see that doesn't mean that that's the way the brand is set up. And it doesn't mean that the people working in that brand, like you said, are getting paid fairly. I mean, it's so much shit that people assume from the outside, and that's why it's set up that way, so that you can look at it and be like, oh, they're accepting, they're diverse. Okay, it's so much deeper than that, and I think people really need to understand this and actually do your research, because at this day and age, it's not like we only have 5 stores to shop at and you can't really I can't help it. It's just, no, we have so many options now that, and it does take some digging, I know, but like, I don't know, maybe you have a way, Al, like when you, as a customer, as a consumer who's not in the fashion industry, how do you even find out what companies at their corporate level, what the diversity is like? Is that even available? Is that information available?
Well, I think what we see a lot as the public from these advertising campaigns is really fetishizing minorities and people of color. Like, you know, it's obvious that we're on the mood board. You know, they've got us on their mood board. You know, they've got that hip hop reference, but they want to communicate it, you know, to their audience because they want to have a perceived, you know, street credibility, or they want to align themselves with just being this international, worldly kind of brand, I guess. When in reality, you know, behind the scenes, it really is mostly white women and white gay men calling the shots. And it's really interesting because, you know, just kind of seeing all the different angles of the business, from working in retail to working in corporate and just being like a consumer myself, like I'm definitely more sensitive to seeing those things. And, you know, being in New York and having friends at other brands, and we're always kind of talking about what's going on, really kind of keeps me like aware. And I think that people see it, you know. I think now with brands like Gucci that have, you know, made these kind of pledges to diversity and inclusion that have yet to be seen, and after doing, you know, some very offensive, you know, collections and merchandise, then are aligning themselves with different rappers and But before, you know, before those things were made and those designs were okayed and approved, it seems like, you know, working with the urban talent was definitely not a part of the radar. So I just strongly believe in, you know, if you're the brand, like, and that's what you represent, just represent that. Like, stay in your lane, pretty much. Like, feel free to get dragged. You will get dragged if you come across like sounding, you know, completely unaware of what's going on socially. But, you know, I just feel like the way that brands are kind of fetishizing culture to align themselves with certain artists, it's just really sad.
It is really sad. And it's like, it goes so deep, because then people are like, well, why do those artists even agree to? It's like, because they're trying to advance themselves too. And like these artists of color haven't been financially compensated for their work for decades too. I mean, it's not, I'm just trying to like stop everyone in their tracks who might be listening to be like, but what, but like, no, this is all, it's all tied to the same thing. And it's not, still
I'm
still
actually
happening.
interested too in like how you feel about the influencer culture, Al, and like how they kind of approach this, because there's a lot of fetishizing,
like social media influencers,
influencers. And I mean, I think even you posted something, and I might have reposted it, Molly, but it's like, I don't know, you might have seen it, Al. It's like, it was like a list in emoji form of like what influencer Instagrams look like. And it's like blonde girl, blonde girl, blonde girl, blonde girl. And then just in the last few weeks, like, oh, black girl, brown girl, brown girl, brunette, brunette.
After the black square. And then after that, it's like, and it's a joke, but it's also not. It's very real. Like, you see
they don't know what to say about the whole Black Lives Matter movement, because it has never been something that they've even remotely cared about, to be quite honest.
And they haven't had to.
Yeah.
They haven't cared until now. And I think now they're leaning on their Black employees, and now they're saying, oh, well, maybe we should, get a kind of group together for minorities. Maybe now's the time internally to work on diversity inclusion. Maybe now's the time to feature people of color, and our content creators. When last year, y'all didn't want to hear it. There probably were people of color in your corporate offices telling you that, and y'all didn't want to hear it.
Yeah.
And like what they're doing now, like you're saying, is they're in a mad rush to get it to the front of the brand, right? Instagram, advertising, which is what you were saying before. Like the corporate structure of these places as of today isn't changing. It's still the white people behind. Now they're just like, oh, let's put this in the front. Let's put this in the front. It's still a facade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
and on top of that, like they're not, it's like they want to align themselves with the movement, but they don't want to put any marketing dollars toward it.
Yep.
They don't want to pay, to have a conversation with a leader in the Black community right now. Like they expect things to just come for free and just to get like sound bites. And it's, incredibly distracting because there's a lot of people that need to be focused on organizing and focusing on pushing the movement forward. And for them to even have the audacity, like some of these brands, to ask for like a partnership or to do an Instagram live and not even throw up any kind of marketing budget that we all know you have. A lot of these brands, after Corona, a lot of these brands got a lot of money from the government.
Yeah,
okay?
because the small
can I
businesses
say that loud so everybody hears this? Because a lot of employees were furloughed, yes. And a lot of these companies got a huge check from Donald J. Trump as well.
Yes.
So, and that money was supposed to be used towards the employees. So, I don't know, I just hope that, a lot of the companies end up really putting it towards the employees and, giving the raises and pushing to raise the salaries of the retail employees as well as the people in corporate. Because it's really going to be important, like, coming out of this recession.
Yeah, and actually what you said about companies now in the last month, like flailing and like, oh, we need to, and you said, if they have Black employees in corporate, they're leaning on them, putting all this weight and pressure on them. Meanwhile, those employees, as you said, are getting paid less than everybody else, and now their responsibilities are heightened, and the brand is leaning on them for its very life, and they're still getting paid less.
Yeah, and you want me to talk to you about racial injustices when it's something that you need to educate yourself on?
Exactly.
Like, just the whole idea of that is very disrespectful.
Yeah,
exactly.
I saw everybody has access to Google. Like nobody can just sit here and be ignorant about the history of this country.
If you can Google how to make another fucking banana bread recipe, you can Google the history of this country. There was some meme going around that it addresses exactly what you're saying, Al, about how the massive issue with white people being like, going to their Black friends or on Instagram, just like, what do I do? Tell me what to do. Tell me what to do. And it's like an image of this white person stabbing a Black person with a knife as a cartoon. And the white person is saying, tell me what to do. How do I make the pain stop? And the Black person is like, pull the fucking knife out. Like, I can't do anything. You have to do something here. And it's like, it's so
awesome.
real though, because it's like, honestly, like there is a difference. I know it's a fine line for some people, but between having these conversations, like you coming on here right now, talking about the fashion industry, talking about your experience, because it is not mine, it is not Alyssa's, and it's important that we share these stories. And there's a difference between that and having your Black friend on to explain how to not be racist. And that's like, I think that's what you're talking about, right? Where it's just like, explain to us what to do. We don't know.
Yeah, totally. And you know what? If you don't know, and if it really is not a core value of your company, it's never been something that you've spoken out before about, my advice is to don't continue not to speak out. So that way we know where we're not shopping and where we're not going to be spending our dollars, because I really feel like the next revolution is definitely going to be more of an economic revolution, where we don't shop at those brands that, you know, are supporting the reelection of this president, and we don't, you know, contribute to just this overall, you know, capitalist kind of culture that we have with the fashion industry.
I have a question for you. Oh, sorry, Alyssa.
No. You go ahead.
I saw this article, and it wasn't just random Instagram post going around for everybody who's going to be like, this is bullshit. It was like a BuzzFeed article, but it was about certain retailers having, it was like Zara, Anthropologie, Urban Outfitters, Balenciaga, like major brands having code words in their stores that the employees say to one another over the walkie-talkie that the shopper's here, just to indicate that a black person has walked in and that somebody needs to keep their eye on that person. And it was like straight, Anthropologie's word was Nick. It was like, so when you're shopping and you just hear Nick to the front desk, well, you don't care. You don't think anything of it, right? And that is straight up. There were employees of these brands and companies that were coming forward and saying this. And it was corroborated by multiple people over generations, people of color, white people who have worked for these brands that were like, yeah, I remember being told this and I remember being trained this way.
Well, Al worked at one of those companies. I won't say which one.
Well, I was just wondering, like you, because you're in fashion, is there talk of that in the industry, that actual, because that got exposed recently, unfortunately, even though it was going on for a long time. But like, that's another, what do you think of that? Or what have you heard? Is that, I don't know.
Oh, yes. That is definitely a thing in the industry. And, you know, I was working for like a very, you know, expensive luxury brand that had stores, you know, on Madison Avenue, Beverly Hills. And I was a corporate employee, but I would have to go to the stores sometimes to, like, you know, if we didn't have the right sample or something, we would do a store pull, right? So I would go in, and I was a corporate employee going into one of my company's retail stores. And I often, if I wasn't aware of the staff, or if they didn't know I was coming, like a lot of times security like would follow me around, or they would be like, are you sure you're in the right place?
Wow.
Or when I was leaving with, like, you know, the giant shopping bags with all the merchandise and stuff, like having to like get extra, you know, it's like, but then being a corporate employee. So I do think that there is a stigma, especially like in these luxury stores, where they'll profile you in a second. And honestly, it doesn't even have to be a luxury store. Like you could just be like, you know, in Arizona at the Scottsdale Mall or something.
Gotta bring up Arizona out.
You know, and people but people don't know who you are, like, you know, and it's very sad. And it's even sadder to me that they would put a name to it like that and encourage their employees to say that.
So I don't know if you know the answer to this. I'm just like, that whole article, I was just like, you know, at the same time, I'm not surprised at all. And I'm also horrified. And I'm just like, how in training though, because you have to have all your employees understand that this is what that means, because that's a part of the language. It's like a code word. So in training, do you know, they just flat out say, like, if a person of color comes in, this is what you say?
Yeah.
I don't know if you know.
You know what? Another thing that I've experienced in the industry is definitely it can get very cliquey. Like when you're at a retail store, you know, it's like the manager, and then maybe there's like a little accessory assistant, and like normally they are, you know, even at a retail level, normally it is, you know, the white Caucasian members of the store that are in those positions of power that make those kind of decisions per store, you know. And I feel like the company culture at a lot of these brands, you know, has been for a while to just kind of promote whiteness and just, you know, always just have that as being the forefront of the brand, really. So they probably didn't feel like there was anything wrong with it, because to them, you know, they were kind of like the brand ambassadors, and they were setting the tone for the clientele and for the store and for the image of the brand. When in reality, they're just a lowly retail store manager,
Yeah.
So I think that it definitely depends on which store and how they kind of structure their employees under them to work
Like
and how
maybe-
to greet clients.
Like maybe not that. I guess that was my question. So maybe not all employees know that. It's like maybe
Right.
it's just the white employees, and the white employees are the ones making these calls. Or because I was
Totally.
I'm like, what are you gonna hire a black person for your store sales representative floor and
Expect
tell them
them to,
that? Like,
right.
no. So how are they? Because everything is a fucking
The fashion
scheme.
industry overall is just a breeding ground of microaggressions for people of color. So, it wouldn't surprise me that they would do that and have employees not know about it, or they
Yeah.
would try to do those types of things, behind people's backs, and that's another thing that's just, it can be really hurtful sometimes, because not only are you having to deal with clients and doing your actual job, but then having to, obviously impress, the higher ups and making
Right.
them feel like you're a good employee and that you're attentive. So,
Yep. And everybody
that-
has to pay their rent, and everyone has to feed their family.
right. But also that's something that they would never put in writing. Like there would
No.
never be like
No.
an employee manual somewhere that had that.
No.
But it would definitely be like an unspoken,
Yeah.
rule.
Ugh.
And also tell us where what your position is now and where you see yourself in fashion. And eventually I'd like to know how you kind of see this industry turning out. But I want to see your personal, where you see yourself in this world and what you want in it.
Right. Well, where I am now, honestly, I couldn't really have picked a better situation, because I still am working in the industry. I'm still doing what I love, but it's for a brand, obviously not as exclusive and high end as I, grew up thinking I would aspire to, but still an iconic American brand that I am very proud to say that I work for. So where I am now, I think I'm really happy. And especially coming from being at a luxury brand and not really feeling appreciated, not really feeling like myself, coming home after shoots, literally crying. Nobody should be coming home crying. It's fashion.
listen, I've done
nobody
that.
should be that, emotionally invested in it. But, I'm human. That's how it is. That's how it was. But, now, I'm definitely really happy in my career, and it just goes to show you that there is light at the end of the tunnel, and there are some brands that, are at least willing to have the conversation about, how they can be better, and they do want to hear from their employees in a meaningful way, and, not just, to have a sound bite or to look over, a story that they're going to put out. So, I am happy now, and in the future, right now with Corona, I'm glad I got a job, y'all. I'm glad I got a job right now.
I don't know. I was
Right.
out and about yesterday, and I was like, oh, well, people were showing up with fashion. I was like, someone did not pause fashion. I was like, people are still.
No, they kept
Yes.
buying it. It's just been sitting in their closet
Yeah.
until now.
Yeah,
I was seeing
people are
looks with these masks. I was trying to do something different.
Yes, you always turn it out. We always
true.
fashion is just fun. It's self-expression. How
It's
can you
fun.
not love it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But definitely coming through this Corona and the recession, it's gonna be even harder now. For now, looking at my experience, I'm blessed that I got to be at Condé Nast and do everything that I did, because now a lot of kids couldn't even have their graduation. They
know.
couldn't even. They don't even know if they're going to school next semester.
Let alone get an
So-
internship somewhere.
Yeah.
Right. And then a lot of these brands, they furloughed the employees. I don't know what their processes are for bringing a lot of them back. And I know a lot of the stores have also been shuttered. So right now I'm just really blessed to, you know, be able to pay my rent and
Right.
buy a little something every now and then.
And like, do you see yourself like, I know in our fantasy, like I'll be like a famous actress and you'd be my stylist, my personal stylist.
Yeah.
But like in the likely event that doesn't happen, like do you still see
Unlikely.
yourself?
Wait, stop. In the
Oh, it's
unlikely event that
been
doesn't
happening.
happen.
Anyway,
Yeah, it's
It's
happening.
been happening.
Take that back out of the universe.
do you still see yourself regardless as being a stylist, as being like, what is like your ideal position in the fashion world?
Well, I definitely want to own my own business one day. I think that that's something a lot of people aspire to. And, you know, working in the industry, like, you know, I've actually seen a lot of successful business owners and a lot of people that are just out here, you know, started off with a couple of jobs and now are able to command a much higher salary than if they were with a corporation. So I definitely could see myself starting, you know, a creative production agency, even, you know, a modeling agency one day. I would love to start, you know,
Cynthia
a
Bailey?
modeling agency.
Cynthia Bailey
You know,
models?
I just really like, I would love to be able to use my experience in a meaningful way to help, you know, the next, whoever's coming after me.
Yeah. I love that. Well, and also, thank God you didn't just decide to start it right before all this shit happened.
Exactly.
Like, I'm going out on my own, starting my own business. Fuck.
Exactly. And one thing I'm actually really proud of is that I was able to get Juneteenth recognized at the company I'm at.
No
As a
way.
company-wide holiday. So now they weren't able to do it, obviously, because it just passed. But for, you know, next year and the coming years, it'll be a paid holiday for employees.
Are you serious?
So that's like just like a little accomplishment because I just feel
It's
like
amazing.
even after I leave the company or, you know, whatever happens, if the company ends up closing or whatever, I feel that I kind of made a little step to making it better for whoever comes after me.
Honestly, that's not little.
Yeah.
It should be little. It should be that was an easy thing to get, but in the world that we live in, obviously that's not little, because I know we're not naming brands out of respect for companies and brands, but like you said, it's an iconic American brand, and that's a big deal. I'm so proud of you and excited about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And it's just really, it's all about educating people because a lot of them didn't even know it existed. You know,
Yeah.
a lot of people saw it on the calendar and just never really thought twice about it, but was ready to go out for 4th of July every year, you know? So
You know-
I think you just have
Oh,
to
yeah.
educate
No, go ahead.
people.
Sorry, what'd you say?
I think you just have to educate, you know?
Yeah, and I had a call with my parents yesterday, and my parents are like, I'm so grateful for who I was raised by, because they're everything that aligns with how I think and what I believe as well, and what everything we're talking about. However, like you were saying about education, we don't. There are so many people who think the way that we are, would agree with everything we're saying, but don't know, aren't educated, because what I'm trying to say is like the white supremacist system that we all grew up under, whether we're white or black, it only works by upholding certain things. And part of that is to keep white people uneducated and ignorant of what's actually happening, because as we see, of course, there's a lot of fucked up racist white people, but I also know that there are a lot of white people who they don't know. They're sheltered from it by the system. The system shelters you from these facts. And I was talking to my dad about the store, what we were talking about with certain stores having code words for black customers that come in. And he was like, you know, Molly, I honestly, a couple months ago, I would have questioned whether that was real. Like, I don't know. I don't know if that really happens. And he's like, but now I believe it. After this last month, he's like, I believe, and that's coming from my parents, who are not skeptical of the Black Lives Matter movement, or they're completely on board. And so my point is, like,
Even when you're
people
woke, you're
even
not-
even when you care, you don't know everything. And also that with education spreading, like you just said, it's education, because there are like honestly, I would say there are millions of white people in this country right now who are, everybody's participating in the system, right? But who are actively ignorant about these things, who, even if they're given a fraction of this education, this information, would be right over to the other side.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the only reason white supremacy has lasted so long and is so strong is it relies on white people not knowing these things.
Yeah,
Being
and
complacent.
the history that we learn is just the fucking fairy tale. I'm sorry, can I curse?
Yeah.
Yes. I think I already did.
Yeah,
Please do.
Okay, sorry. But like, I was like, it's like when that clip that was going around of like The View when Sonny was like
Oh, I
educating
know.
Joy on George Washington, and there's like adults that think that he was walking around with wooden teeth and
Yeah.
eating
And
apples.
Joy is like,
and,
woke, but like,
Right.
even she didn't
but
even
it
know
just
that.
goes to show you, it really goes down to the history that we learn and
Yep.
the
And she was a
films that
teacher.
have been made that
Joy was a
glorify.
teacher.
Yeah, we've just been taught to glorify these group of white men in a certain
Yep.
part of history as if they had the greatest idea for the greatest government ever.
And as if it
That's
I don't
applies
think
to,
it's. I think we can do a lot better now.
and like we act as though that applies to like just because it was wrong when it was wrong back then. So why would we think that if it was wrong then, it's still right now?
Yeah.
In the sense that it's just, well, I think that one of the biggest blockages to people waking the fuck up is that it's defensiveness. And I feel like I just want to tell everybody right now, like, separate yourself. No one's, I'm talking to white people right now. Nobody's blaming you specifically for slavery. Nobody's saying your mom did this, your grandma did that. We don't know. None of us were here, right? So did you have any say in being white? No. Did anybody else have any say in their skin color? No. Also, we live in a system that intentionally separated us from this knowledge, which that isn't our fault, but what is our responsibility is educating ourselves and listening to these conversations like with you, Al. But it's just like, I feel like so many people get hung up on the defensive aspect. Like, I didn't know. We know you didn't know. That's why white supremacy is working. It's not your fault you weren't taught this, but now it's your responsibility.
Yeah. No more excuses either. It's like, it's 2020. I mean, there's no more excuses on covering your eyes and your ears and pretending everything's okay.
Yeah, especially if you are a white person and you're also part of the LGBTQ plus community.
Yes.
I just felt that a lot of times, they are very visible in a lot of fashion companies.
Yeah.
It is a lot of
yeah.
white women, most of them, and it's mostly a lot of white gays. And obviously they understand what it feels like to be disenfranchised and to have to fight, for equality and every day of your life. A lot of them grew up bullied, grew up with families that didn't accept them. So it's just very surprising that now once they are in positions of power and they are employing, people of color, that they don't take the time to even educate themselves on certain things. Actually with the Juneteenth at first, it was approved, but I was told it would be like a holiday. Like it would be a holiday that I would lose, which has a financial implication, because your holiday time is supposed to be your holiday time. It's not devoted to, certain holidays. And, I work with a lot of women that are in the Jewish community that take off for all of their holidays, and I don't know how that is different from Juneteenth, and I don't understand. Sometimes it's puzzling. Like, I'm glad that they are open to have the conversation, but a lot of times when you're the one in the position of power, you need to be the one to step out and say, look, this is coming up. We're employing this person. We have people of color that we care about.
Yeah.
How can we change and support them more and show them that, we see them and that they're appreciated?
Yeah. I'm like so excited that you did that for that brand.
I didn't even know that. Well,
Yeah.
I wanna know what your SOS moment is, Al.
Well, my SOS moment was definitely, before I, had this amazing career opportunity, I was in a very kind of bad working situation, and I hated my job. It was really difficult for me every day to even wake up going to the office, just feeling just overall dread. So it definitely, it came to a breaking point, I think, when I was just like, crying. Like, nobody should be at work crying, and other employees were crying. Trust me, I wasn't the only one that was going through this at the time.
Yeah.
And I think that also really helped me decide, you know what, enough is enough. Because seeing that I'm having this experience, my coworker, who's also a person of color, is having the same experience. And we're going to HR, we're following all the different, procedures to try to work through issues, within the office, and it just wasn't going anywhere. So I had a, SOS moment, and I just kind of like jumped out on faith, and luckily I landed somewhere that I really feel valued, and I really feel seen, and I feel appreciated, and I genuinely love my coworkers, which is so rare right now. But I just feel like everything kind of happens for a reason that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember
And
you
you
telling me
also-
about that one situation and the racism that you were feeling, and it was from, like, I don't know if I can say, like, a young girl, right? It was like a young white girl.
Yeah, it was like a girl
was a
that's our age.
superior.
Literally the whole time I've been working has been with people within, 5 to 10 years older, you
Yeah.
know? So it definitely isn't like a generational thing.
Right.
Yeah.
It really do be people your own age
Yeah.
that act crazy.
But
so
But white people.
we still need to we just still have to educate,
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, like I have a lot of admiration for you because you made the decision. Because so many people are in miserable situations and they wait till they're forced out or something. And even just talking financially, like that's, I mean, you, like you said, I know we're not naming brands, but like you said, you're at a luxury bland, which also bland, apparently.
It was bland.
A luxury
Yeah, very
brand,
bland.
but like high end. And, it's like to take that leap and to feel so, I mean, that's how bad it got that you're like, I don't care about the security that I have financially, that I need to get the fuck out of here. And that it says a lot, but it takes a lot to do that.
It does.
And you
And
landed on your
wasn't-
feet, but it's
it
not
wasn't
like at the
something
time.
that like I decided like overnight. Like first of all, like me and my one coworker who was like my confidant, we were the only people of color in the entire corporate office. Period. Okay. Period. There was two, and I'm counting interns too. Like so. It was just very. Every day was a battle. I don't know why it was that way. I think that as a director, whether you're in fashion or any other industry, like you set the tone for your department.
Yeah.
Like you set the tone. You allow what you allow within the department, and that goes towards the way you speak to one another, the way you interact with one another. The way you give critiques, you set the tone. And a lot of the upper management there, they were just setting a very negative tone for the entire office.
Jeez.
And the one coworker actually ended up leaving. She had been planning and like behind the scenes, we were like, is today the day? You're going to tell them you're quitting.
Yeah.
And she quit and actually went for an entire year around the world by herself backpacking.
Wow.
And had been saving, and like she went on her own, and like she really inspired me because after she left, then there was one. Okay. So then I really didn't have anybody to like, it was so helpful like having those lunch breaks where we just like leave the office for like 20 minutes and can just be like, do you know what she just said to me? Like, have like an actual moment, you know, and not feel judged or feel like people are spying on, you know, or like, you know, or blowing things out of proportion. So when she left, like, it really, it kind of changed my world, and it made me think, well, then what am I still doing here? Like, she's out there living her life, like traveling the world, doing all these great, fabulous things, and I'm still here being miserable because I am tied to the idea of this brand, and it's a brand that I just grew up with and that I had always wanted to align myself with, but I was forsaking my own, you know, emotional sanity, really.
Dignity.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, obviously, you know, still love all the luxury brands, but for me, working like with a more diverse, like mass market kind of brand has been really like helpful for me in my like own sanity.
Yeah, I understand. Wow.
Did you feel a shift in like your, because sometimes when you're in an environment that's toxic for so long, you know it's bad, and but you don't even realize the extent to which it absorbs into your self-perception. And I don't know if like when you got to this other place where you are now, where you're just like, oh my God, this is, and things are so much better. Then did you realize the depth of like even how it affects your perception of yourself when you're at work in an environment like that?
Yeah, I wasn't doing my best work because I was so scared of making a mistake or doing something wrong and like being reprimanded. Whereas, you know, now, like if there's a mistake or if we need to address something, like it's a way more positive and it becomes more of a learning experience than, you know, just an experience to belittle someone or try to tear someone down. And actually, like when I met Andre, like that's why that connection will always stick with me, because it was during Fashion Week, a time that, you know, is like so stressful.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that one part of the year that if you work in fashion that week, you're not going out. Like, you are not calling your friends back. You're not eating. Like, you are just focused on the show.
Yep.
And so obviously it was very intense. And a lot of things at the company were changing. And then, like, just seeing him, like, I just felt like he knew what I was going through, but, like, he didn't, you know? So, like, his words just really, like, stuck with me. And, you know, that also, like, really helped me, like, decide to branch off, too.
That's so cool.
I am so proud of you, Al, and everything that, like, you've been through and how you've never let it stop you. You never let it, you know, like, you've just overcome a lot of shit, and you're still so fucking awesome and amazing and talented, and I'm so lucky that you're in my life and that you're here talking to us. Like, you know, I know we're not naming brands, but it's still brave to talk about these experiences because, you know, I mean, obviously because you're in my life, I know a lot of these stories, but you know, you just assume, and you just kind of, you know, you don't really put faces on these stories in this world because, you know, most people just know, like you said, Devil Wears Prada and not, you know, any other experience.
And you were like living it with me as I was like going through it.
Yeah.
So like now that we have came through the other side and can look back and like laugh on it, like that is like such like that's like such the ultimate victory, you know? Because for a while, like it just was like this gray cloud, like I'm always just gonna be here and I'm never gonna get promoted, and like so this is my career and like nobody's gonna want to work with me. But like now I'm like somewhere where I, you know, I really do feel supported, and I'm just couldn't be happier. So
and I want to like emphasize for people too, like I guess I already said it, but it's not like this. I admire you so much because you had to make that decision. Like everybody is like, "Oh, that sounds great. Maybe my situation will turn out like that," and it will if you decide to make it. Like you made that jump. It's not like that you would fall into this specific job and then everything would be great and you'd feel this way. But I applaud you for following your gut instincts and your intuition because you knew. Like, I don't have the answers for what comes next, but I know this is wrong. This is detrimental to my spirit. And like, that's only step one. A lot of people get there. A lot of people live their life knowing that their career situation is detrimental to their spirit. But it's step two. It's like, you did that. You were like, I'm out. I don't know what's next, but I'm out. And I applaud you for that because that takes a lot of guts and a lot of belief in your own intuition.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, because you never know. You could go somewhere else and have the same experience.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
Statistically.
Yeah, but, I think I just was really lucky that everything worked out and just so happy.
Well, thank you so much, Al, for taking this time to talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
It's important.
Thank you guys for having me. I wish I could give you all like big hugs.
I know. I want to give you a hug here. Computer hug.
I love you. Thank you so much.
I love you.
And now we're friends for life, so you can't get rid of me.
Yes, friends for life.
Thank you so much for listening, and thank you again to Al for sharing. I love him so much. I hope you guys do too. He's amazing, and you're gonna see him again next week.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much to Al. Like I said, this is a part one of two-part Al conversation. Next week's a different topic, though, still regarding race, so it's gonna be really interesting. For this week's, we wanted to highlight for our charity nonprofit, the Black in Fashion Council. And the Black in Fashion Council was founded by Lindsay Peoples Wagner, editor-in-chief of Teen Vogue, and Sandrine Charles, owner of Sandrine Charles Consulting, to represent and secure the advancement of Black individuals in the fashion and beauty industry. As a collective, they envision a world in which Black people in fashion and beauty spaces can be open and honest, guaranteed equal rights, and be celebrated for their voices. They've partnered with the Human Rights Campaign to create an equality index score that will provide benchmarking around the corporate policies and practices pertinent to the inclusivity of Black employees. So they're new. So at the moment, there isn't a place to click and donate. However, you can follow along and learn more at blackinfashioncouncil.com. Another thing I wanted to shout out that has cropped up in the recent month of insanity in this country is an organization called Pull Up for Change. I don't know if you guys have heard about this. I recently heard about it. So it was started by Uoma, I hope I'm saying that correctly, Uoma. Uoma beauty founder Sharon Shooter started this movement that asks brands to disclose the number of Black employees in corporate roles. And a number of major brands have participated. And this isn't saying, like she specified, it's not Black employees, because we all know the face of brands has become very diverse because you need people to think you're a diverse brand, the models, the retail people, the people in the front. But she's talking corporate structure, the people at the top of these brands.
Making the plans, making the deals.
Yeah, making this shit happen, and is asking that they disclose the actual number, be transparent. How many Black, not even just people of color, Black employees are in your corporate roles. And so it's called Pull Up for Change. It's on Instagram at Pull Up for Change. So please follow them. You'll see which brands have participated, which haven't, which have been called upon to participate but haven't. There's also brands who have participated whose numbers are pretty pitiful. And for that, I say good for you for just acknowledging that you have one Black employee in corporate, for putting that information out there, calling yourself out. And for those that release their numbers and have good numbers, obviously, thank God for you. But it's a really solid thing to support. So I wanted to throw that in there too.
Yep. And if you wanted to check Al out more, go to his Instagram at Alex Taylor W. And reach out if you have similar stories or have questions about the industry. He's more than happy to answer those for you.
Yeah.
And next week we're going to be talking to him again with his wonderful boyfriend Dace about basically being an interracial couple during the time we are in right now, and the struggles that come with that and the joys that come with that, and not even just an interracial couple, but a gay interracial couple, and yeah. And I'm so excited for you to hear that interview. Please follow us at the SOS Pod on Instagram, on Twitter. Get us on YouTube at well, there's no at, but search for SOS with Molly and Alyssa, and you're gonna see our beautiful faces talking because we are on YouTube, baby. Rate us 5 stars, please, on Google or Apple Podcasts, and leave a review. It really helps us in the algorithm of things and helps us grow our audience. But that's it. So we love you guys. Thank you for coming in and waiting and still being here if you're still listening to this episode.
Right.
We love you. And here's to turning meltdowns into magic.